Do you know your brain? And if so, if something went wrong, how would you know? I'm here to educate you guys on a rare brain degenerative disease called PSP. It's one of 5 rare brain diseases that affect people in their prime. My grandmother was diagnosed by a neurologist initially and then diagnosed correctly from the Mayo Clinic with progressive supranuclear palsy. She died on May 5th of last year from this disease. Today I'm going to go over the knowing our brain, progressive supranuclear palsy, and my grandmother's journey. The brain is the most complex part of the human body. And this 3-pound organ is the seat of the intelligence, interpreter of our senses, initiator of our body movement, and controller of our behavior. Lying in bony shell and washed by reductive fluids, the brain is the main source of all the qualities of our humanities. When the brain is healthy, it functions quick and automatically, but when problems occur, the results can be very devastating. Some of 50 million people in this country, 1 in 5, suffer from damage to the nervous system. Presently, there are over 600 neurological diseases. Some well-known degenerative diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and then some that are not so well known as PSP. The rare brain diseases also mean the treatment, the cure, and the cause are also very rare. So now that we have some background on our brain and how it works, I want to go into the disease of progressive supranuclear palsy. Brain degeneration is not a disease that only strikes the elderly. There is a spectrum of brain diseases that start in people's 50s or 60s years of age when they have family responsibilities, careers, and active lives. This is also known as our prime years. According to the National Institute of Health, half of all brain degeneration under age of 65 involves 5 diseases. These 5 diseases are referred to the prime of life disorders because the onset is right before retirement age. These diseases have similar initial symptoms to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and that's why most times they are misdiagnosed the first time. One of these prime life disorders is PSP. According to the curepsp.org, PSP is a progressive disease with no cause or cure. It affects the brain cells to control balance, walking, coordination, eye movement, speech, and thinking. When one is diagnosed with PSP, the initial symptoms you'll see is when they freeze up when they're walking, which causes them to fall down, the slur to speech, the stuck eye movement, which also means that they get dry eye very easily because that's when they only blink 1/4 the times as a normal person. Also, the froze face look is whenever you see like a person like deer in the headlights type of look, that's going to get their froze face, look confused. And then the change of handwriting and our change of personality. These initial symptoms will gradually translate over into the symptoms of the inability to walk, talk, drink, or eat. When one is diagnosed with PSP, their lifespan is 5 to 7 years from the start of their initial symptoms. German scientists have found a protein called PERK that may be a target to treating PSP. Other current studies and clinical trials are focusing on using stem cells to treat PSP and other neurodegenerative diseases. So now that we have an idea of what PSP is and how it works, I want to go into my grandmother's journey, which is my personal experience I witnessed her. She had retired at the age of 62 to take care of me and my brother after school. So she would pick us up after school and then take us home till our parents got off work. After a year of her retirement, her initial symptoms began. So her handwriting had changed. She had the lost look, a froze face all the time, and she started to fall a lot, which really concerned all of us. So we initially took her in to see a neurologist, and they misdiagnosed her with Parkinson's disease. But then my mom had an instinct and knew that something was not right. She was misdiagnosed. So she did some research and gathered all her material. We went to Mayo, and they had confirmed it. She was diagnosed with PSP. When she was diagnosed with PSP, my mom knew she couldn't put her in a nursing home because she didn't have the heart to do that. So she quit work, became a 24-hour caregiver. When she first moved in, she was able to walk, able to talk. She was fine, just a couple symptoms in the first year. But then after that, of the 4 years, her symptoms and condition deteriorated very quickly. She went from a walker to a wheelchair. She went from talking to only yes and no questions, and then no talking whatsoever. It was more of head movements. And then the assistant to help her eat and drink. Take a minute and think about how for granted you can eat and drink by yourself. And with my grandmother, she had to have an assistant to help her eat or drink, or she would die of starvation. So due to this disease, she had died on May 5th of 2018. If you take a look at these pictures, this is my grandmother before she was diagnosed, before she had anything. This was about a year or two into it. You can see how much she had changed. And then over here, this is about 3 or 4 years into it, and you can tell the eyes got really bad. She can barely stand up, and how much she has changed from just a year or two with it. And then this is right before she died. Yes, it's a very vivid image, but you can just see from the time span of how this disease took a toll on her. But overall, she was surrounded by loved ones and died peacefully at home with assistance of hospice the last 17 months of her life. We loved spending time with her. Even if the days were bad, the time was priceless. In conclusion, now that we know our brain, and it is important to seek help when you feel your brain is not functioning properly. Always get a second opinion when being diagnosed with a disease, especially when you're under the age of 65, because you can be easily misdiagnosed with the initial symptoms being so similar to each other. Do your own research. Like I said, my mom didn't ever do her own research. We could have been treating my grandmother with Parkinson's instead of her actual disease, and she could have gotten way worse and be dead within 2 years rather than having lived 6 years. So do your own research, because you know yourself and your loved ones better than the doctors do. And always, if you're going through a devastating time with someone, always get a strong, close support group, because it will make it so much easier and feel like you guys are all together rather than being alone. Overall, I hope this information helps any of you and all of you to be able to recognize early warning signs of PSP that may benefit you guys in the future. Thank you. Any other questions or questions? Yes.
Are certain people more genetically susceptible to developing PSP?
It goes back and forth in the studies, but personally I want to say yes, because my great-grandmother had it, and her sister had it, and now my grandmother had it, and there's a possible chance that me and my mother can have it. So yes, there's a likely chance of it, more likely chance of it being genetic, but people can get it even if it's not in their genetic system.
Is it more prone in women than men? Because it sounds like in your family it
Yes.
affects the women.
Yeah, yes, it's more likely to happen in women than men. All right, thank you.